routine sparring in boxing can affect brain performance. Routine sparring in boxing can affect brain performance. You're listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Alibokis Alexander on Spreaker. Social podcasting, presented for World Reading Club in association with UniquilibriuM. This edition's reading focus comes to us from neurosciencenews.com and is titled Routine Sparring in Boxing Can Affect Brain Performance. It was published under the categories of neurology, neuroscience, and open neuroscience articles on September 13th, 2019. I'm here at Powerhouse Boxing and Kickboxing in Virginia Beach, Virginia, located at 977 Chimney Hill Parkway. And I very specifically chose this to read part of the World Reading Club series. I'm reading it on Hypnoathletics Exercising Your Mind show, where I'll be putting most of the Capoeira martial arts, combined with everything that goes into that category of martial arts for me. In the background, you're listening to one of my binaural beat, my 3D binaural beat soundscapes in a collection called Solfeggio and the Seas. This happens to be the 528 hertz binaural beat formula for my demi-phase brand, which is short for demi-cerebral neurophasing. And there are lots of reasons for putting this one here, and for the recruiting of sparring partners here at Powerhouse Boxing and Kickboxing. And this article is very important for understanding what's going on in the mixed martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, football. There was just an article earlier today that I read, and let's see, that one was, yes, it was called Review Strengthens Evidence That Repetitive Head Impacts Can Cause CTE. And more than anything else, though, this is really, I'm making a review here myself and just getting in touch with this research and, rebuilding up my whole portfolio here again. I've done plenty of work for World Reading Club, and all of these podcasts are extensions of that, just in the different niches that I happen to be in. And this one is martial arts, specifically boxing. And again, it's called Routine Sparring in Boxing Can Affect Brain Performance. September 13th, 2019. Summary. It is well documented that professional boxing causes neurological impairment. A new study reveals routine sparring can cause short-term impairments in brain-muscle communication and a decrease in memory performance. Source: University of Stirling. Routine sparring in boxing can cause short-term impairments in brain-to-muscle communication and decreased memory performance, according to new research. Remember, this research was new as of 2019, September 13th. Let's see what... I'm getting messages from people from back in the day. I said back in the day as if it was that long ago. Sarah Del Valle. Haven't heard from you in a little while. I know you're busy, just making sure I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Well, thank you for checking in on me. Alright. Yeah, I haven't been on social audio or social podcasting sites, Wisdom or Call-In respectively, for it hasn't even been a week, I don't think yet, but I don't know. But a lot of stuff goes pretty quickly for me because I'm always doing something. So, let's see. Back to the article. Neuroscience News continues. The findings emerged from a University of Stirling study. A University of Stirling study that assessed boxers before and after a 9-minute sparring session, where athletes trade punches without the aim of incapacitating each other. This study, alongside the team's 2016 research into the impact of heading footballs, is one of the first to show that routine impact in sport, thought to be innocuous, results in measurable changes in the brain. Let me stop right there for a moment. Who the fuck thinks that, or ever thought, that routine impact in sport is innocuous? Are you kidding me? Okay, so something that if you get hit really hard can knock you unconscious, break your bones, knock the wind out of you, tear your skin open, and any manner of things like this. Bruise, skin lesions, like leave welts, like all this stuff. You're telling me that there was a belief somewhere in science and medicine that thought that routine impact in sport was innocuous? Listen, this is what this is just said. This study, I'm reading this again. This study, alongside the team's 2016 research into the impact of heading footballs, is one of the first to show that routine impact in sport, thought to be innocuous, results in measurable changes in the brain. All right, I'm going to have to pick apart the logic in this for just a moment. People have been beaten to death before by like their friends and family members, specifically, like for example, men beating up their wives and killing them. People we've seen it in movies and all kinds of fiction and non-fiction. People really actually being punched and kicked to death, right? And there was some medical scientific consensus somewhere that thought that routine impact in sport thought to be innocuous. All right. Let me just look up the word innocuous for us here, folks. Let's just look up the word innocuous. Look up. Okay, look up shows personalized suggestions from the... Continue. Here we go. Innocuous. Adjective. Harmless. Inoffensive. Right? Another one. Innocuous. Not harmful or offensive. There's so many other different places, right? Siri suggested websites. Producing no injury, harmless. Right? Innocuous. Definition. Not harmful or injurious. Not causing or being capable of causing. Right? So the consensus in the definitions of the word innocuous is not something, I'm not making this up. It says, okay, I'm going to leave them alone now. That's it. I'm going to continue with this Neuroscience News article. Live from Powerhouse Boxing and Kickboxing in Virginia Beach, Virginia, located at 977 Chimney Hill Parkway. All right, so this is, by the way, where I teach boxing, yes, let me just say, I teach boxing, kickboxing, capoeira, yoga, mat Pilates, and breathing meditation, and where I'm podcasting from. So, come on through. Let's play. All right, this is, let me continue with the neurosciencenews.com article. Holy cow. If you don't want to hear anything like that that's this irreverent, you can just simply go to my World Reading Club show, and I'm pretty much just reading those. At least the last 40 or 50 of them are all it's just straight read-throughs for educational purposes. This also is educational, but I'm taking some liberties because this is my hypnoathletics exercisingyourmind.com show that I'm revamping. But after that, they're going to be also pretty dry as well. The one show that I will leave where I can just go off and be crazy is going to be the Hakeem Alibokus Alexander podcast on Spreaker. Almost all of the other ones are going to be very formal and dry. And I'm going to let all the crap out on the Hakeem Alibokus Alexander one. I think that's going to be a good place to to get that done. Right now I'm still being a little casual on this one, but that's what I look at the direction's going to go. Alright, so let me continue with this from Neuroscience News, right? Innocuous. Alright. Okay. I don't get how they think that would be innocuous, but let's continue. Alright. This study, alongside the team's 2016 research into the impact of heading footballs, is one of the first to show that routine impact in sport, thought to be innocuous, results in measurable changes in the brain. Experts believe the findings raise further questions around the safety of other sports, where similar routine impacts occur, and say further research is required. Dr. Thomas D. Virgilio, a lecturer in sport, led the latest study alongside colleagues in the Sterling Brain's multidisciplinary research team. He said, "There are still questions surrounding the relationship between repetitive routine head impacts, such as heading in football or sparring in boxing, and brain health. The truth is that we do not currently know how much impact is safe." For many years, a debate has taken place around the safety of boxing. However, these discussions often focus on heavy blows inflicted during competitive fights. In contrast, we looked at subconcussive impacts, those that are below the concussion threshold, inflicted during training sessions. Our findings are important because they show that routine practice may have immediate effects on the brain. Furthermore, athletes may be at greater risk of injury if the communications between the brain and muscles are impaired. The team assessed the motor control and cognitive function of 20 boxers and Muay Thai boxing athletes before and after a 9-minute sparring session, 3 rounds of 3 minutes. Measurements were taken immediately after the session, and then 1 hour and 24 hours later. Motor control was measured using transcranial magnetic stimulation, which uses magnetic fields to stimulate the nerve cells in the brains of participants to understand how it communicates with the muscles. The participants also completed a series of tests, the Cambridge Neuropsychological Test Automated Battery, providing objective measures of cognitive function. The team found that 1 hour after sparring, the participants showed impaired brain-to-muscle communications and decreased memory performance relative to controls. After 24 hours, these effects returned to baseline. Dr. D. Virgilio added, "We have previously shown that the repetitive heading of footballs results in short-term changes to brain function, and this latest study sought to understand whether similar effects were observed in training practices in other sports. Although transient, we found that brain changes observed after sparring are reminiscent of effects seen following brain injury." And this is a recap under the featured image, which I'm using here on Spreaker. It's of a boxer, probably training because he has a beanie cap on, black field background, black It's a black and white image, black gloves it looks like, black t-shirt. Everlast boxing gloves are in there. And the recap is, or the caption is a recap of something from earlier. And it says, our findings are important because they show that routine practices may have immediate effects on the brain. Furthermore, athletes may be at greater risk of injury if the communications between the brain and muscles are impaired. The image is in the public domain. Neuroscience News continues. As with our previous research into heading footballs, it is not possible to say whether there is a safe threshold when it comes to the level of impact in sparring. Further research is required to help sports people and the academic community fully understand the dangers posed by subconcussive impacts, routine in sport, and any measures that can be taken to mitigate against these risks. Dr. D. Virgilio worked alongside sterling colleagues Dr. Angus Hunter, Dr. Magdalena Letzwart, Professor Lindsay Wilson, and Professor David Donaldson. Dr. Hunter said, importantly, this is a breakthrough study using pioneering techniques enabling us to understand how impaired brain-to-muscle signaling alters electrical recruitment patterns of leg muscle. In the short term, this may negatively affect fine motor control and thus athletic performance. The study was at the center of a high-profile BBC documentary entitled Alan Shearer, Dementia, Football and Me, presented by the former England footballer. Source. So usually this says about this neuroscience and concussion news or whatever. Oh boy, hold on. Irritated. All right. I gotta clean out this dust of this corner here. All right. Source: University of Stirling. Media contacts: Greg Christensen, University of Stirling, and the image I referred to earlier is in the public domain. Original research is under open access for a paper that is titled Understanding the Consequences of Repetitive Subconscious Head Impacts in Sport. Brain changes and dampened motor control are seen after boxing practice. Thomas D. Virgilio and others. Published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, 2019. You've been listening to, well, what are we listening to here? We're listening to, let's say hypnoathletics. Yeah, you're listening to Hypnoathletics, Exercising Your Mind, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander here on Spreaker Social Podcasting, presented for World Reading Club, Hypnoathletics, Exercising Your Mind, in association with UniquilibriuM. I'm discussing a paper from neurosciencenews.com titled Routine Sparring in Boxing Can Affect Brain Performance. I'm mostly reading it, and right now it returns with an abstract from the paper titled Understanding the Consequences of Repetitive Subconcussive Head Impacts in Sport. Brain changes and dampened motor control are seen after boxing practice. Objectives. The potential effects of exposure to repetitive subconcussive head impacts through routine participation in sport are not understood. To investigate the effects of repetitive subconcussive head impacts, we studied boxers following customary training, sparring, using transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, decomposition electromyographic, EMG, and tests of memory. Methods. 20 amateur boxers performed 3-minute sparring bouts, or 3 3-minute sparring bouts. Parameters of brain function and motor control were assessed prior to sparring and again immediately, 1 hour and 24 hours post-sparring. 20 control participants were assessed following mock sparring. Results. 1 hour after sparring, boxers showed increased corticomotor inhibition, altered motor unit recruitment strategies, and decreased memory performance relative to controls, with values returning to baseline by the 24-hour follow-up. Conclusion. Repetitive subconcussive head impacts associated with sparring resulted in acute and transient brain changes similar to those previously reported in soccer heading, providing convergent evidence that sport-related head impacts produce a GABAergic response. These acute changes in brain health are reminiscent of effects seen following brain injury and suggest a potential mechanism underlying the damaging, long-term effects of routine repetitive head impacts in sport. That's it. So basically, let me just sum this up in the gist of this whole thing, which really just is hilarious to me. This study, alongside the team's 2016 research into the impact of heading footballs, is one of the first to show that the routine impact in sport, thought to be innocuous, results in measurable changes in the brain. So that's what this is. This research is into the impact of into the research of routine impact in sport, to show that it causes measurable changes in the brain. So repeated or routine impact in sport results in measurable changes in the brain. That's it. So that, that's the deal. The deal is repetitive head impact, or repetitive head injury as it's sometimes called, results in measurable changes in the brain. That's it. That's not news, but it'll do well for the, search engine optimization. You've been listening to Technical News Reading, Hypnoathletics, Exercising Your Mind, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, presented for World Reading Club, Hypnoathletics, Exercising Your Mind towards Universal Harmony and Spiritual Wisdom through Healthy Living and Self-Defense, in association with UniquilibriuM. This edition's focus was on an article from neurosciencenews.com titled Routine Sparring in Boxing Can Affect Brain Performance. You can read it for yourself by visiting neurosciencenews.com, 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 and remember, it's titled Routine Sparring in Boxing Can Affect Brain Performance. La-da-dee-la-da-da. All right. And this binaural beat that you're listening to is one of my Solfeggio on the Seas creations, and it's 528 hertz. And I actually have something called a love tuner that I'm wearing around my neck that should, if I blow this, sound the same tone as what you're hearing. Here, let's see if it can pick it up. So you hear that tone in the background? And this here, that's a 528 hertz. Exactly pitched. Let me see how long I can hold this note. Here we go. I did it for at least a minute. Alright. That's enough. And that was a love tuner. Peace out.